Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you very much for joining our webinar this morning. I'd like to take you through this question over the next 60 minutes or so, and hope you can find some answers for yourself that are relative to your business. You know, why would you migrate your business to Google Apps for Business? I'm going to be joined by Brian Coffey from Google. Are you on the line, Brian? I know you're on the WebEx.
Yeah, I'm here, Bash.
Super, fabulous.
Yeah.
So let's get straight on with the introductions. I'm the Managing Director of Zumzum Limited, and joining me this morning from Google Enterprise is Brian. So Brian, if you could just introduce yourself.
Thanks, Bash. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Brian Coffey. I'm the Google Apps Territory Manager for SMEs in the UK and Ireland. So I speak to a lot of companies around the country in relation to Google Apps, and I work with partners like Zumzum to help them come on board.
Super, thank you very much. What we've done this morning is put all your voice connections on mute. That's obviously for the comfort of all participants. So if you do get any questions, please enter them through the chat box, and if they are applicable to the part of the presentation or the demonstration, then we'll try and address those then or at the end of the webinar. And if we don't reach your question, what we will do is contact you after the webinar and make sure we address all of your questions. The webinar is being recorded, and we shall post the link online on YouTube and send you that via email as well, so you can obviously share that internally with colleagues and anybody else that you feel appropriate, and obviously review that at your own leisure. So with the welcome over, what we'll do is try and accelerate through the first part of the presentation this morning. Once we've talked about the vision for the enterprise, Brian's going to talk about what Google's been doing to become a serious player for enterprise businesses, seeing as to how we all know Google as a consumer product, obviously one of the best known brands in the world, but articulate that vision for enterprise and business users. I'll then take you through the Google Apps product suite, a very high-level overview of the various apps that are available to you as part of your Google Apps subscription. And then what we'll try and do is concentrate most of our time and effort this morning on the Google Apps demo. And then a little tip on how businesses can truly test and pilot Google Apps with how to get started, and of course, any questions that we need to address at the end of the webinar. So Google's been very busy building a reseller community to help businesses overcome the change of moving from traditional IT systems to cloud-based IT systems. Zumzum is one of the first Google Apps authorized resellers in the UK. Our particular focus is in the small and medium business sector. It is certainly the area or the segment of the marketplace that's most dynamic. Most of your businesses are nimble enough to make this change quickly and get a competitive advantage out of changing your IT to cloud-based technology. And to do that, we offer a range of services, from the initial consultation about, is this right for your business, what's the business case there. It's not just a question of cost savings, but how will your business and staff be more productive, and should that be a yes, then of course provide you with a service to help you implement and manage that on an ongoing basis, and of course help your staff through training, education and change management, and ensuring that they become familiar and productive with the Google Apps suite. And we've got a range of products that complement Google, including CRM and financials and even tactical add-ons that really once you get the bug of moving it into the cloud, you won't buy PC-based products anymore. You'll want to deploy very easy to use software very quickly through a whole suite of cloud-based applications that become available to you. And one of the main reasons why the Google proposition is so attractive is that when you look at the infrastructure that Google's actually built from its humble beginnings in the late 90s, their business is obviously well known as a search engine provider, and clearly the infrastructure required to run Google.com and all the search properties. There are massive data centers all over the world with hundreds of thousands of identical servers that Google builds themselves. And that was the one of the most interesting facts that I found out about Google when looking at the various propositions is that Google is considered the 4th largest server manufacturer in the world. However, none of those servers are ever shipped outside of the organization. They're custom built, very secure, locked down completely, and deployed to several data centers all around the world, which means that your data is automatically replicated across multiple servers and data centers, so an extremely resilient infrastructure. So moving your data from an on-premise system where typically you'd have 1 or 2 servers to moving it to the Google platform, you just have a huge amount of resources at your disposal. Not only the infrastructure, but of course the skills and the people that Google deploy, not only to keep that secure and maintain it, but of course to evolve that, particularly when it comes to security. If you imagine all of the advertising that you see on the Google properties through things like AdWords, all of that is paid for through credit cards that users type in, businesses type in, which represents billions and billions of dollars flowing through the Google system. So security is inbuilt and ingrained in Google's culture, in its systems, and its approach to protecting not only their own data, but the data of their users. So there's thousands and thousands of engineers, obviously dedicated to security, which very few businesses can possibly ever dream about achieving themselves. So, and there's a huge amount of latency. Google building and managing data centers and deploying servers faster than we as businesses and consumers can actually use that up. So this proposition has been going on for several years now. There are in excess of 5 million businesses, although that's above 350 million consumers that are using products like Gmail. In this context, there are already 5 million businesses that have moved to Google. This number is increasing, about 5,000 new businesses signing up on a daily basis, which represents a current user base of something like 40 million users. So you can see some of the brands there that you'll probably recognize, both UK brands like The Guardian and Jaguar Land Rover, as well as international brands and global brands there as well. But this is obviously just a small segment of the install base. And just to highlight examples of why businesses are actually moving not only to a cloud infrastructure, but particularly selecting the Google infrastructure. It's a very, very democratic technology. Whether you're a 1-man business, a 100-man business, or a 100,000 person business, you're using the same applications and infrastructure. And possibly the same drivers for moving to the cloud. So when Jaguar Land Rover were being divested by Ford to the Indian company Tata Motors, faced with the question of, do we rebuild our own IT infrastructure? Given that many businesses inherit this over a number of years, It's difficult for us to throw away our IT and then start again. But of course, when you're being divested, you have this brilliant opportunity to ask the question, if I could start again, would I accumulate hardware and infrastructure, servers and all the necessary resources, or would I use a cloud-based service? So I guess you get the chance to ask yourself that question every time you're considering upgrading or investing in your IT system. So when Jaguar Land Rover were faced with this question, they realized that they could either rebuild an IT system, including email, such as Microsoft Exchange, or use a cloud-based service. And looking around at the various options, then Google came out in terms of the most cost-effective option, but of course putting technology in the hands of users that typically in the past wasn't available. So Jaguar Land Rover decided to implement that at the end of 2009. It's probably more like 18,500 employees now that are actually on this platform. And the savings run into millions of pounds, as you can actually imagine. But you can apply that concept to your own business when faced with buying new hardware, buying new software. Moving to the Google platform really will not only reduce your IT costs and avoid spend, but of course give you tools that typically have only been available to the richest of businesses that can invest most in IT. But Google now is putting that technology in the hands of every size of business. So Brian, over to you to talk about Google's vision for the enterprise.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Vash. Yeah, so you can see from the slide here, I mean, really in order to determine the origin where our sort of vision and solution came from, we felt, when I'm talking to businesses, there's really 4 major trends that are really shaping the industry. And Google Apps was born because trends change fairly rapidly in this industry. So if we take the first one there, innovation. So the example here is Local Motors. They're a Boston-based micro manufacturing company, and they crowdsource car designs. Excuse me. And what they did was they used the online community to vote on which build to go with, and then they had the parts manufactured overseas, and then they sell it in kit form. So they're able to take a vehicle from concept to creation in under 18 months. In an industry like this, speed is highly competitive, where it normally takes a company over 5 years to reach a production speed. So it's incredible how the example of how innovation can speed up the business process and change the way you actually do business. And then if we look at collaboration, there's a study there by the Future Foundation identified that 81% correlation between collaboration and innovation. I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to everyone listening here, is that obviously the more you collaborate, the more you exchange ideas, improve things, and ultimately you drive innovation. But what I want to maybe have everyone think about today is what kind of tools are you providing your employees today to effectively collaborate together and ultimately drive the so much needed and wanted innovation. So perhaps have a think about that. When we look at the consumerization of IT, so the social side of it, there's a quote there from a couple of years ago, and this has largely come true, is that Gartner, believe that 50% of businesses are using social networking platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Blogger, all sorts of ways of reaching their customers and their partners. So this really allows employees internally even just to share useful business information easily to a wide group of colleagues. And then finally, mobility. So again, this prediction has largely come true in 2012. Is that the smartphones are outpacing all other platforms in terms of what's being used. Mobile workers, they need to be effective from anywhere. They need to be able to collaborate and to have access to their emails, their documents, wherever they are. They shouldn't be tied down to a single device. So, if they're at the airport in an emergency, they can still always access their data. You can can move on. Yeah, thanks. So the next sort of question is, well, what's stopping people or stopping businesses from leveraging these trends, that I highlighted in the previous slide? Well, the first one is a complex architecture. So Gartner's annual survey repeatedly finds that 80% of IT spend is focused on keeping the lights on. So you have things like email server, Active Directory, file server, backups, antivirus, anti-spam, storage servers. They're all piled up, and then of course there's patches and upgrades. And then when the company goes, well, you have to double the software licenses, double the hardware. And it can really start to pile up, and essentially that's what an IT manager's job now is to just keep those things running rather than bring real value to the company. And sometimes I'll ask a question to the people, to the businesses I'm talking is, why do you want a data center in your company? And the answer normally is it's not like they want one, but they have certain needs, and I would tell them, listen, you focus on your business. This is our business. Let us take care of this for you. Personal productivity, yes. So, I'm sure we've all had a situation where, you had to work together on a particular document. You're usually sending multiple versions of the same document for one person to collate and, make sure there's a final version, and then someone else sends you a final version. So it can be fairly frustrating. And it's really not, you'll see later from our example, it's really not the best way you could be working. We have fairly, complex interface is also an issue that is stopping, a lot of companies switching over to the cloud. Traditional IT software tends to start with the design process, with the business process in mind. And this can lead to interfaces that are not really intuitive to the user. And as a result, what happens is, reduced productivity, and then there's a poor user experience for your users. Whereas many web applications, like the ones that Google has built, are designed with the user first and deliver a more intuitive experience for those users. And I touched on it on the last slide, is that, many users are still bound to a specific device, be it a desktop or a laptop to get their work done. So, I mean, this often means that they need to be in the office to have access to their device to be productive. And it also heightens the risks related to security and data loss, especially if you have users who carry laptops around. So, why is Google uniquely positioned to deliver this vision? Well, first of all, we're web native. Our products are built for the web from the ground up. Be it for our search to YouTube to the Google Apps suite that we'll be talking about later. We don't have a legacy code base to transition to the web or large revenue streams to migrate to the web. We have more than hundreds of millions of users using our consumer products, and we understand their needs, and we're able to quickly adapt to these products to their needs. We also actually have a thing called 1% testing, which allows us to pilot new features on our consumers, the consumers of our free products. So really, that's hundreds of thousands of users, and we get their feedback and refine, the offering and before implementing it into Google Apps. So we take the best of what's there and put it into Google Apps. And there's really, no other company that could do this at this sort of scale. In terms of, Bash touched on this earlier, a couple of these points, but we have our own custom-built Linux stack with redundancy built in as a standard. So there's no third-party software on there for attacks. Everything is built from within Google. And our engineering excellence, well, we have a 99.9% guaranteed SLA. Realistically, that's running at 99.99% at the moment, although it's not quite guaranteed yet. So, and we have a variety of security certificates that we've gone through to make sure that our security is intact. And we are constantly releasing updates. So almost one a day we'll have a new feature, and you can turn these on or off if you want to use them. So the days of sort of waiting 3 years before your product is out of date, or 3 to 5 years and you have to upgrade, this would actually be your last upgrade, because the way you get these features is just by refreshing your browser. There's no downloads or patches. So this is sort of the last thing I'll touch on. So we have a kind of an overall enterprise vision here. So obviously we have our Google Apps, which we're going to demonstrate later. We do allow you, though, we realize that there are going to be some on-premise situations that you need to implement into Google Apps. So we actually have a product called App Engine, which allows you to develop your own products or your own applications and they will sit on our infrastructure, so that you can implement them and have them integrated with Google Apps. And if you can't do that, well, we have third-party apps, very similar to, say, the iTunes App Store. There's a lot of very well-known companies that have built third-party applications, like, say, CRMs or finance-related software that all integrate straight into Google Apps. So you can build that on your own. If you can't build it yourself, there are many companies that can. And then obviously we have our own operating systems like Android and Chrome OS. And I mentioned it earlier, so on-premise systems, we have APIs that you can plug into Google Apps. And obviously we also integrate with other cloud providers as well. So we have an overall enterprise vision that there's over 4 million companies that are currently using it and are quite happy with it.
Super. Thank you very much, Brian. If we delve into a little bit more detail now. So Google Apps for Business, let's point out the item that we talked about several times here. Cost, it's only £33 per user per year, plus local taxes. Break that down to a monthly cost of only £2.75 per user. So the opportunity to move away from a capital expenditure to an operating expense. Very, very competitively priced, and the competition is struggling to get anywhere near that. And of course, moving to the cloud does not necessarily mean that we expect you to abandon all of your existing or legacy systems, even if I'm calling Active Directory a legacy system, or whatever directory system that you actually have based on LDAP. So along with the enterprise version, i.e. Google Apps for Business, is some enterprise tools, so being able to link this to existing directory systems and automatically provision users. And hopefully what you're going to see this morning are applications that run extremely fast and are very intuitive, living inside the browser, as Brian pointed out, designed for the internet generation. This has been going on for a decade. Although we do suspect that there may well be a real reason why you would want to carry on using a fat client like Outlook, or perhaps there are users that will resist change, and for some tactical reasons you might decide to grant them the ability to carry on using fat clients. So of course you can connect any kind of client that supports IMAP, for example, but there's some very, very good integration and syncing between Microsoft Outlook and the Google Apps platform. Of course, syncing mobile devices, whether it's BlackBerry or any other kind of device that supports the Active Sync protocol, which means iPhones, iPads, iOS devices, of course Android devices, and many other devices that have that software built in. And again, to show what great value this is getting, quite different from the Google Apps free product, and that designed for consumers, where quite often Google is criticized for not having technical support. I think that criticism is coming from the uneducated, because here obviously once you're paying for your Google Apps subscription. There's a link in your dashboard, a support tab. So as a system administrator, of course, it comes with the 99.9% service level availability that Brian described, and also comes with 24/7 telephone support. You can choose to log it via email. You can choose to log it via a self-service portal, but in certain situations, you'll pick the phone up, you'll get through to the contact center, you'll give them your support PIN as a paying customer, and that call will be logged, a priority associated, and then an engineer associated. But quite often, they're not, the services are not unavailable. So there's lots of how-to questions or configuration questions. There's a couple of add-on services that you can add as well if you choose that you want to archive all of your inbound and outbound emails. For backup, security, or compliance issues, you'll notice the Google Postini services that are an add-on for 1 year or 10-year options. That suite includes, of course, the core of this from a personal point of view has been Gmail, and the driver for many, many businesses is to improve the email experience for users. And the number of times I'd managed to break my fat client email system because I just accumulated too much email, and I had this constant battle with IT that said, delete your emails, archive your emails, get them off the system, and then your PC will carry on functioning correctly, versus a desire, obviously, to retain content just in case I needed that for servicing a customer or any other issues. So having this huge 25 gigabytes of email available to me, I never have to delete an email again, simply archive it, and it's there. And after having used it for many, many, many years, I mean, single figures in terms of how much of my email I'm actually using. But at the same time, using other tools like instant messaging, voice and video conversations, tools that we're all probably using in our personal lives as consumers that have been around for decades, that we lacked in business. And by moving to Google Apps, we can use Google Talk, which quite often replaces my need to send emails, where I can have a real-time conversations with somebody, again, stored that text conversation in my mail client so it's retrievable. And of course, if I really want to, I can switch to voice and video as well. And using things like Google Groups for creating forums where we can post content, or distribution lists, or sharing content, whether it happens to be websites or documents, and being able to create ad hoc groups and collaborate with them on the fly. Of course, you'd expect an easy-to-use calendar that can be a very powerful scheduling service too. So everything you'd expect from your traditional calendaring service with the search capabilities and the ease of use that comes with using it through a web browser. And the recently launched Google Drive, and Google have been working on this for some time. There's two parts to that you're going to see this morning. There's, of course, the traditional Google document that allows you to create word processing documents, spreadsheets, presentations, and the real-time collaboration of that has been a godsend. Gone are the days of having to send and receive documents between customers and suppliers and colleagues and have multiple versions floating around in our email system, clogging up our communications, to now using Google Docs to have a single copy of the truth, one online version that we all access and edit and collaborate in that in real time. You're going to see a couple of examples of that this morning. And of course, that's been around for some time, and Google has been increasing the various different file formats that you can actually load up and store and keep in a secure place. That recently was rebranded as Google Drive. So all the traditional Google document functionality and the ability to have 5 gigabytes of data stored online. Of course, you can expand that to many terabytes worth of storage. Have that either synced from my computer or accessible from a mobile device as well. So anywhere I am, I can get to documents, and that's, again, proved a massive productivity gain. Being on customer site, being in front of a customer, knowing that the content exists somewhere and being able to turn to Google Drive and find that instantly while you're faced with a customer is just a massive godsend. And for those users that have a valid business case for continuing to use Microsoft Office, quite often we find the 80-20 rule. 80% of users are not using any more than 20% of Microsoft Office, so the business can ask the question, why do you need to buy and pay for expensive Office licenses for those users? They're real candidates to migrate to Google Apps and reduce the cost significantly. And of course, there'll be the 20% that are considered power users, and maybe they want to continue using something like Excel with VB scripts or macros that they don't want to port. Not that they're not portable, but you can recreate those. And if you don't want to go through the recreation exercise on the Google platform, then obviously there's a valid reason why I want to use those. So Google Cloud Connect for Microsoft Office allows users to carry on using Microsoft Office, not only store that document in Google Drive so it's accessible anywhere, but bring real-time collaboration to the existing Office suite. So adding functionality that was never there in the traditional product. Google Sites, and for many, many years, we've been talking about empowering end users to create sites. And of course, that exists in the consumer space. From a business perspective, being able to create microsites for projects, for collaborating with colleagues, as easy as using a word processor. I can create that site to collaborate with customers, collaborate with partners. Obviously, it's all very secure. You'll see the sharing model that all content is built securely, and being able to click a button and search that with anybody. It's as easy as using a word processor. I can create sites, I can edit sites, and I can delete sites all without having to ever contact IT, and all of that hosted on the same reliable infrastructure the other Google applications are running. And although we're not going to show this morning, but having your own private YouTube network with something like Google Video, the example we gave of Jaguar Land Rover, this is a private network. It's unlike YouTube, it's not public domain, it's only people inside the domain that can actually view and access those videos. So when Jaguar are launching a new car and they have a new advertising campaign due to go out in the coming weeks, they want to keep that private, but of course expose that to employees. They simply load that video up into their internal network, and all employees can access that, even if they send the link externally. Then if you don't have a domain email address, then you can't see that content. And we said some of the add-on services for email archiving that, again, there's some products in the roadmap that will upgrade Postini to Google Vault. But that's the product suite. Brian already touched on this, the ability to go to the marketplace and within 4 clicks add additional applications. There's many of them there already, whether it's accounting, CRM, or tasks or project management or anything else. So do go and have a look there. It's just like a consumer app store where you can search applications by category, read the reviews and grade them, and many of them are freemium models. So if you do like them, install them, test them. If they're acceptable, then you can roll that out to other users. If not, you can simply remove them from your domain. Let's go over to the product demonstration. So my starting point here, typically I would start my day coming to my email client. So for those of you that have used Gmail before, you'll see this as a familiar Gmail interface. Probably the subtle differences, of course, you brand this with your own corporate logo, and of course it's using our domain email address rather than the @Gmail. And of course consumers go off and add different colors and attributes and backgrounds, and you can do that as a business user as well without affecting any of the users. Here on the left hand side, I'm going to see all my labels or folders, as you see in this case, my content. And we're going to touch on labels in a moment. And what I've done for convenience sake is I've moved my chat window here over on the right hand side so I can see colleagues that would perhaps be online if I may decide to actually send them an email. I could choose here and say, actually, I might chat with you in real time. One of the most amazing features here is the search function. You notice there I simply type in search as if I'm searching google.com, and within a few milliseconds search results are actually returned. And when I look at any one of these documents, let's take that one there, and this has been returned because the system has found the keyword demo in its content somewhere. So whether it's in the sender's address or in the body of the email or the subject line, then you can very quickly search for the email that you were looking for. And this is one of the radical changes that I found, that although I have all my folder structure, which Gmail calls labels, in the past, I diligently spent time storing email in lots of different folders only to never find them again, versus in Gmail, I simply type in a keyword search, and quite often that's the fastest way to find the content that I'm looking for, because I remember the content of the email, not necessarily all the specific details, and it's returned in a few seconds. And while we're here looking at something else that makes my life easier as well, a document's been shared with me, and without even leaving my email, I can actually preview that document inside my email, or if I wanted to, open it up in a fresh new browser window if I really wanted the full screen effect, and go off and edit that document as well. So let's close that down. What you will notice, and again, this is a slight change of paradigm, and I had to put some real thinking around this. I had to break my legacy habit of trying to store an email in a particular folder, is that you'll notice here that I'm able to tag emails with multiple labels. And that's the difference between an email sitting in one folder, it can only ever exist in one place, versus the way I'm thinking about this email is that, of course, it sits in my inbox, but it comes from Bash, and it's also tagged with various labels. So at any time, I could decide to add another tag to this email, and I've now got a visual alert. Now, when I go to that tag, and I can look in the folder, so the system's already looked in that folder. Of course, I can access these folders here on the left-hand side at any time that I wanted to. There's my label calendar, and all of these are obviously tagged with the calendar label as well. So it means that when I'm looking at emails in my inbox, of course, I'm not manually tagging all of these. I can have them automatically tagged, but I could select any one of those and decide that I'm going to tag that with a particular label, demo, and go apply. If I wanted to, of course, I could choose to move and tag it at the same time as well, and that just removes it from my inbox. It's not gone anywhere. It's obviously just in the background, hidden away. So again, if I no longer want to see that, I archive away. I've stopped deleting emails, and all those emails sit in both my all mail folders and the various tags that we've given those as well. If we wanted to, at any time, of course, I could go in and create a filter. So rather than having to manually tag these messages, to say that every time I get a message, and you can see the various filter criteria that you can actually use, whether it's in the subject line or includes keywords, a domain name or an email address. Let's say that this is an important project, and I want to make sure that whenever it comes from that email address, I can perform various different actions to it, whether I forward that on or make sure it doesn't go to spam. But in this simple example, what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply a label to it. We've got one here called Zumzum, or of course I could create a new label on the fly. And the system's also said there are 120 matching conversations here. Do you want to also tag those as well? I click create, and now you'll notice that that's also tagged with the Zumzum tag as well. Now, every time I get an email from that address, you'll notice that it's automatically being tagged with that label as well. So I can start to process my inbound email, give myself some visual alerts, get it organized and sorted, and hopefully be much more productive in those emails as well. Now, one of the key differences in Gmail, you're going to love it or hate it, is the conversation view. You'll notice here that, of course, there are numbers next to these email conversations. I found this a massive productivity gain. Again, you're going to have your own opinions on this. But what I can do is that when I'm looking at this email as the latest email, all the previous emails are actually grouped together. So saving having to search my inbox, I can see the whole conversation there and the most recent email at the top. So I can compress all of those, or I can choose to open them and I can see the various emails are included in that thread. And again, that's brought me up to speed very quickly on the history of that conversation. I can now reply to that email and say, thanks very much, hit reply, and go send. And that reply is also associated to that thread, that conversation. So they're all grouped together based on subject lines. Of course, if you want to create a new thread, then you simply change the subject line. Here on the right-hand side, when I'm looking at my email, you have the information about the sender. This is a little Google function that I can see elements about this user. I can see what groups I've got them tagged in. I could choose to have a chat, although Bash is offline. And here, right in the conversation, I could say, thanks, but can we talk more? Unfortunately, I know Bash is offline, but I'm just going to do that for a second. So some presence information and the ability to switch conversation types straight away. Once again, when I look in my chats folder, those chat conversations are stored just like email. So of course I can reference them, and here again the chat conversation is actually linked to the whole email conversation. So we can interact in different ways, and that whole conversation is stored, and I can keep it for prosperity and refer back to that at any time that I actually want to. So that'll give you some additional functionality there in terms of how you choose to process your inbound emails. And here on the right-hand side, I can see that Ray's online. I might even decide that I don't want to start an email conversation. I might just say I'm going to chat with Ray in real time. So I can see he's online. I might need a question answered and probably need that doing a lot quicker than sending out emails. So knowing Ray's online, can we use video? So being lazy as I am, I think it's even easier for me to communicate via video. Once you have a plugin installed, you can switch to both voice and video. Now, Google's innovation here is that you'll notice all of this happens inside the browser without downloading any software at all. Morning, Ray. Hi, very well, thank you. How are you? Super, lovely. We're just explaining how the video works inside the browser. So you'll notice that we didn't have to download any PC software. Although there is a PC client, I can actually connect, have an instant message, have voice and video, and disconnect from anywhere that I've got access to my Gmail. There's a small plugin that installs into the browser that you'd have to do first time. But voice and video, all included in the cost, and there was no additional call charges involved there, running on obviously voice over IP in the network as well. So really, really easy to use there. All my applications are available to me here on the left-hand side. You'll notice a little plus icon here for Google Plus. For those of you that haven't explored it yet, one of the common questions we get about video conferencing is, can we use multi-user video conferencing? And one of the best features about Google Plus is Hangouts. And in Hangouts, you can have multiple. So in Google Talk, it's one-to-one, and in Google Plus, it's one-to-many. So you can have lots of people in the same video conference at the same time. So to access my various different applications, over to the menu on the left-hand side, you will notice that any of the third-party applications that we have installed from the Google Apps Marketplace are also available to me at the click of a button. So if I wanted to go off and open up any one of those third-party products as well, you'll notice that once I'm logged into Gmail, I can go off and actually log into yet another product without having to sign in, because the company has deployed that. Only administrators are able to actually deploy that. So let's go to standard Google application, as you'd expect, Google Calendar. So lunch with Ray on Saturday at 1 p.m. and just throw that into my calendar. Oh, do lunch with Ray on Saturday at 1 p.m. And you can see that the event with Ray was actually added directly to my calendar, and I actually could go back and change that as well. Maybe I want to go back to a particular day, and you'll notice that I didn't even have to key that in. So some nice intelligence. Of course, the search capability, you can search your calendar. Again, if I can't remember when I had that meeting, but I know I had the meeting with Ray, I can just type in a keyword. You'll notice here I'm looking at my own calendar. But if I wanted to see another user's calendar, I've got this wonderful overlay functionality where I can check either users, so maybe we can see what Paul is up to. You'll also see that we've got access to resources, so our WebEx meeting, and it overlays, and I could probably see that there's a decent slot here for all of us that we're available, including WebEx, that I can actually do a meeting. But of course, as you would expect, not only can you add users, but you can add resources to a meeting and check its availability if you wanted the software to do the work for you. It's suggesting that we're all available on this time. Alternatively, I could choose any one of the other times that were available as well. Let's discard that change. Of course, if I just really wanted to focus in and say, only look at Bash's calendar, you can see here we're sharing free busy information. So I know that there's a booking in his calendar, but I don't know what he's actually up to. So privacy is very, very important. So depending on your settings on the domain, you can choose to make content private or not. So that will reflect all the way through the various Google applications. Switching over to my Google Drive, then you'll notice, again, I've got a bunch of folders on the left-hand side with all my various content. And I can create a new document very, very easily. So whether that's a word processing document, a spreadsheet, a presentation, this is a document. And over on the right-hand side, at any time, I could choose to share that content. Content is always more private, even within the organization. It defaults to private, but if I wanted to, I could actually share this with a user on the system. So I'm going to share it with you. I could add a message and say, this is a demo, and decide to share and save. I've now added a collaborator, but perhaps I don't want that collaborator to be able to edit. All I want them to be able to do is either view or comment on the document, allow you to comment, save changes. So I have control over how I'm sharing content, and more importantly, once I decide that you no longer need access to that document, I can remove you from the list. So adding and removing new documents is super simple, but let's perhaps take an example of a spreadsheet. So not only working in the browser, here we can actually see that there are two collaborators already in the document, and go, hi Ray, please can you update the actuals? And this is where one of the massive productivity gains come in. I can see who's in the document. We can discuss content directly in the document as well. And I can also see here that Ray is marked in this lovely reddish color, and I can see where Ray is actually changing content. So I'm going to change that to say, in fact, that's 33. Type 1, 2, 3. I go return. So we're both working in the same document at the same time. And of course, it's being updated and all of us are viewing that document in real time. So thanks very much. No more emailing backwards and forwards various bits of content. Whether we do that in a word processor, a spreadsheet, or a presentation, we can all be collaborating in the same document at the same time, and we know that we're looking at the real up-to-date version. Now, as the owner of this document, of course, what I may want to do is have a look at the revision history, and I can see here exactly who made what changes at what time. And if I wanted to, of course, I could compare different versions as well. So I can go back to previous versions, and I can see that 3 people actually made changes, and as the owner of this document, if I wanted to, I could restore to a previous version as well. So full revision history is there online, and once again, when I look at the collaborators within this document, I can add and remove them. I can add them either as individuals. Of course, I can also add group email addresses. So if I wanted the group support to have access to this document as well, and go share and save, everybody in that group support will have access to this document as well. So that's a little bit about collaborating real time. What you'll notice here, though, in my documents list, I've got various different icons. So not only am I able to view native Google documents, but I can load up my legacy content, like a Word file here. Although I'm unable to edit this document, what I can do still is share that document. So anybody that I grant access to, so again, go to Dev, share that document. Dev will receive an email and go, yep. And let's kill that off. And they will be able to view this Microsoft document directly in the browser. Of course, if I wanted to convert it, I can actually export to a Google document, creating myself a copy of that document that I can actually edit online. And you can see that the rendering is pretty good there. I mean, we've kept the majority of that content, and all I need to do now is just go off and tidy that up as well. So there's a huge long list of various file formats. Loading up a file is a simple click of a button, or I can choose, if I want to, I can actually drag and drop to my desktop as well. So let's just upload a document here. We'll see the document's being uploaded, it's finished, and it's added to my list. I can click on that, and immediately I can view the document directly in there. And again, I can share that off with anybody I want to. So whether that's a video format here, again, one of the great innovations is being able to render all of this content directly in the browser. Wherever I am, I've got access to all my key content. And here's an example of a video that I have sitting in my Google Documents that I can share and I can view. Works as well with compressed files. So there is a zip document here. I don't even have to download it to my desktop. I can see a bunch of images and an Excel file. I click on that link there. It opens up the Excel file, and it's rendered that document for me inside the browser. So living life inside the browser doesn't necessarily need to compromise functionality. You can see that I've dealt with multiple file formats, and I can access all of those through the browser. If I do really want to have an offline copy, you'll notice here that I have a folder on my computer called Google Drive, where I can use this to either sync content from the online documents down to my local computer, or from my local computer up to Google Drive. So by dragging and dropping that, so if I really wanted to add some content, I could simply take that copy, and let's say if I wanted to move that to a folder, I can take it to my local hard disk and say I'm going to drop that to my Google Drive, and let's go replace, and that will now start syncing that up with my Google Drive. So all happens in the background without you having to do anything. So that's for those users that do want offline access to any of their content. Of course, the Google Documents are only accessible via a browser, but you can see all these various different kinds of file formats. So just because I'm moving to Google doesn't necessarily mean I have to recreate all my content. You've seen there that I can load it up, I can view it, I can click a button and convert it, and I can be productive very, very quickly. Finally, one of the tools that brings this all together is the Google sites. Hopefully you're getting an idea that there's a massive amount of functionality here, and we're only really going to be able to touch on the surface. You'll notice that just like any of the other apps, I can actually create a brand new site, and let's call it Webinar Today. And as you would expect, the sharing options are private. I can simply create a new website, and it loads up as if I'm using a word processor, so it's all point and click. I can choose to edit this page and say, welcome to my new site. And I could choose to add various different types of content. You know, whether it's documents from my Google Documents, images from Picasa or a Google Map, the spreadsheets or presentations or video that we've been working on, either, you know, from Google Video that we've launched or Google Docs videos, and various other gadgets, and control the layout, and of course save that site. Just like the other Google applications, you'll notice that you can share that content, and the dialogue appears that you're familiar with in terms of, you know, who has access to this particular site. So it could be one-to-one between me and the CEO, or it could be one-to-many between me and my team, or I could make it accessible to anybody in the organization. So let's go back to the site. Of course, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time adding any content here. We're going to do the good old fashioned Blue Peter concept. Let's go back to our site and show you an example of a demo site that we've already got here. Oops, not that one. Let's show you maybe show you that demo site. So what I've done here is just embedded a few gadgets here. I've decided to display a view of my Google Calendar. Maybe that's a project calendar with a bunch of bullet points. We've got a couple of gadgets here to make recent announcements or recent files that I've actually uploaded. So I can go to my file store. The menu here on the left-hand side will be automatically built for you. Let's maybe just add a file and go open that file. We've now just uploaded some content to the repository there, and it's just available to me. One of the other things that you're able to do, of course, is, let's say we're going to go to the news page. You know, whether this is a blog, a microblog, or just announcement related to the project. This is our latest page webinar. Days and new file. So as you'd expect, just be able to save that content, go back to my home directory, and of course the news update is made available and the most recent file is made available. Like the other sites, of course, if I've created a site on the fly, I can also delete any one of those sites because I am the owner of that content. It's just like a word processing document. So I could at any time, if I wanted to, go away and delete this site now. And of course, I can control many, many different attributes to that site. If I chose to delete this site, I've done all of that without having to contact anybody in IT. There's no internal infrastructure that's being used. That's all hosted on the Google infrastructure. So you see, I can start to build up quite an interesting site with recent activities, videos, etc., and a bunch of different content stored in there, whether that's in an embedded document. So if I make that available, you see that's a real-time Google document. So a huge amount of power there and a huge amount of productivity there to be had to your users. So I think that's the whole set of tools that are available to you. Again, we're just scratching the surface. And in terms of moving forward, those of you that are interested in moving to a pilot stage, what that means for us is, without destroying or impacting your existing email infrastructure, so leave your existing systems in place. There's the ability to set up Google Apps to shadow your existing environment in what we call a dual delivery pilot. Your emails will arrive in your existing system and delivered to your normal users. And for those nominated users that are on the pilot, a copy will be forwarded to those. A 30-day trial can be set up for as little as £99. That's a very low barrier to get you on the path of having a serious look at the Google application. So please do consider that as a next step. And then you'll be able to get your hands on the products and actually really use them, test them, play with them, and evaluate how you can improve your team's productivity. So the take home from that really is that by moving to Google Apps for Business, what you should ask is, are your staff going to be more productive? Is this a better way of working for you with faster access to information and more time using it rather than searching it? Evaluate your current costs, compare that with the Google costs, and establish whether this is an opportunity for lowering your IT cost and complexity, displacing all of that infrastructure. And of course, by moving your data to the Google platform, take advantage of the extra security and the reduced compliance risks by putting them on the Google platform. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'll bring the webinar to a close. Any of those, please feel free to email us or post any questions that you have following up the webinar, and we'll reach out to you one-to-one to give you any further information that you need. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.